And welcome back, guys, to another video on my channel. My name is Tinnitus Coach Frida, the guy who was born deaf in his left ear, hearing aid and severe tinnitus on his remaining right ear. And today we talk about a very, very important topic, which is tinnitus and loneliness. And I absolutely get it because I've been there too. It's not very common that you are born deaf in one ear and that you only have one ear, and therefore you should be careful with that one ear. So I absolutely can relate to when it feels like you're the only one who has to deal with a hearing issue. In this case, tinnitus. And today in this video, I want to show you why you're maybe not as lonely as you think, and how you can get out of that spiral of tinnitus and loneliness, which actually stands in your way of getting habituated and feeling better with your tinnitus. So, like, when you're stuck with tinnitus and it just for so long feels there's nothing really you can do, and you start to believe that no one can understand it like you do, and that you're like one of the only person on this earth who feels like this towards that tinnitus, and that isolation that you feel, right? This feelings of frustration and the feeling of, you're the only one who experiences exactly this. It's not real, it's imagined, and I'm going to tell you why. It's one of the biggest things why tinnitus is so difficult and hard to live with, because our brains are incredible at creating certain stories around the reality that we're perceiving, and it constantly makes sense of our experiences and what we are experiencing in the world right now. When tinnitus shows up and no one else seems to hear this, because the people, your friends and family or people around in your life say, well, you can hear that ringing or you can hear that sound, but I really can't. Then our brain is actually saying, okay, I'm alone with this. I'm all on my own on this. And this, from a survival pace of view, right? That's something that's incredibly dangerous, because we are super social creatures and we haven't evolved to deal with problems on our own. Usually we deal with problems in a group and people understand each other, right? So we're wired to be super social, and when there is something that threatens us, that we don't really understand as such at first, and the group says, I have no idea what this is, then that is interpreted by the brain as a threat. So even though the isolation isn't real, the reaction to that perceived isolation is definitely real. So your nervous system kicks into very high alert, constantly releasing cortisol and adrenaline, stress hormones, that really drains you. Your body feels drained, and you feed that back to the tinnitus and say, my tinnitus leaves me feeling so drained, I'm isolated, I'm alone, and no one else feels like this. So the tinnitus then feels louder, more intrusive, and scarier. But it's not really that the tinnitus has changed. It's how the brain feels towards the tinnitus what has changed. And that's really the most important part. The truth is, really, you're not alone at all. And while many people might not know what tinnitus sounds like, they will definitely absolutely know what it feels like to be anxious, to feel hopeless, to be stuck in a certain place where you definitely do not want to be stuck in, right? Or to have thoughts that this will never get better. We are human beings, and as such, as human beings, we have these kinds of feelings all the time. So those are human feelings, human being feelings, not tinnitus feelings. And it's a very important distinction. Because when we start to see that, something very, very, very powerful starts to happen. The world around us becomes a little bit less scary, and our brain begins to calm down a little bit, right? So when we realize that, in fact, the emotions that we're struggling with and the feelings that we're struggling with towards tinnitus are just human feelings of insecurity, right? Then we can connect to more people. We can open up even more again. And it doesn't mean that someone needs to hear exactly the same sound or the pitch or intensity. It just means that the person are going through the same difficulties that you are going through. And people understand your fear and despair. So that's why I believe that connection and the feeling of safety are such an integral part in people's habituation story. Habituation is not about ignoring tinnitus. It's about helping your brain perceive that tinnitus is not dangerous and that you don't need to fight it anymore. And of course, when you feel lonely and you feel like you're the only one that has this, and other people also are super isolated and lonely with this and it's super difficult, then of course you're threatened by it. Absolutely, anyone would, right? So feeling connected and feeling less isolated, feeling safe is what will tell your brain, I can experience this, but I do not constantly have to look for it, and I do not constantly have to put on the fight or flight engine in response to my tinnitus. So that's where habituation slowly starts to happen. Habituation makes the tinnitus fade into the background because it's not perceived as something as such a threat anymore. And that is because you have learned that you're not the only person that deals with this. And just to give you a very, very, very quick example, this is why I built my Tinnitus Club. This is why I built a club that's accessible for people from all over the world, that is accessed by people from all over the world, to give them a space to connect, to validate, to share their experience, to see that other people are struggling in exactly the same way, but that also the feeling of habituation comes in and people live their lives despite the most horrific tinnitus, horrific in brackets, because in the end when you're habituated, tinnitus isn't horrific anymore. They still live their life, they habituate and they move on and they live good lives despite the presence of tinnitus without being bothered by it. So just very, very clearly to share with you, I am the founder of mytinnitus.club, 12 weeks program, and a community-based space where you feel less lonely about your tinnitus and where you learn the tools that you need to support your brain's habituation process. So I kept seeing people being so alone and feeling like they're going through all of this all by themselves in the same way that I went through all of this all by myself when I was 19 and started dealing with tinnitus. And I thought that's a shame, right? It's a shame that the ENT tells you, first of all, there's nothing we can do. Second of all, like you're kind of like figuring it out on your own. And I'm like, does that really have to be that way? No, it doesn't. So I created mytinnitus.club. I coach people with tinnitus, and feeling that you are not hopeless and that you are not as lonely as you think makes a massive shift in your journey. So I hope that this video was useful for you. I hope that it enables you to feel a little bit less lonely with your tinnitus, because 20 to 30% of the average population experience tinnitus, but many of them are habituated and are not bothered by it. But if you're not right now, that's fully okay. Fully understand your pain and your difficulty, those sleepless nights, those difficulties with your tinnitus, and it does get lonely. But if you do want to start with our habituation process, then go to habituate.online to find my free 4-day course to tinnitus habituation, or visit us directly at www.mytinnitus.club for our 12 weeks online community-based, so safety and community-based program to tinnitus habituation. Thank you for tuning in for this week. Thank you for liking and sharing and letting me know in the comments of whether you feel a little bit less isolated after watching this video. And I thank you very much and see you in the next one. Goodbye.